My dear people of the Southern Cameroons, fellow resilient and brave fighters for freedom of the Southern Cameroons, my dear people of Ambazonia, accept Sunday afternoon greetings from me, John Ba Akuro. Today is the 8th of September in the year of our Lord 2019. This communication is mainly going to be about the recent move that we have seen from the Secretariat of the United Nations Organization with plans to disburse the sum of about $17 million translated into CFA or converted into CFA gives a sum of 10 billion CFA to the government of La République du Cameroun to bolster their efforts to intensify the war, to intensify the decimation, to intensify the genocide on the people of the Southern Cameroons. I know there are quite some people who see that, as they have seen other actions in the past, as a death sentence to our hopes and aspirations for freedom, to our hopes and aspirations to self-determination, which is a right. My dear people, I know that some have received that message with a lot of shock and consternation. Yes, a good lot of us have. But I will add very quickly that that news to me is not surprising. Recall that I brought up a communication. I recorded a video in June of 2018, that was last year, in which I brought out a letter that was leaked from the Secretariat of the Presidency of the Republic of Cameroon in Yaoundé. And according to that letter, the Secretary General, the current Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, that had just received in audience a delegation from Mr. Paul Biya comprised of the current Prime Minister, head of government of that country, Joseph Dion Ngute, Professor Nkot, who is at the Prime Minister's office, and Paul Mingo Gogomo, who at that time was Director of Cabinet at the Prime Minister's office under Mr. Philemon Yang. After discussions with that delegation, when Mr. John Ngute went back and wrote his report to Mr. Biya, he made clear that the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, had determined that he was going to use his good offices, I insist, his good offices, to ensure that the government of La République du Cameroun will have good press from around the world, despite all the atrocities that were being committed. He promised to use his office to provide access to La République du Cameroun with important public relation firms from around the world to help them spray perfume on the sheet that was being passed out by Mr. Paul Biya. Since that time, take a look at what has happened. Soon after they left, there were contacts with Squire Patton Box. Of course, we all know about that. But from that moment until today, there are 3 other public relations firms in the United States of America that have been put together to continue to see how to cover up all the atrocities, the abuses, the decimation that Mr. Paul Biya is visiting on the people of the Southern Cameroons. So this is not strange to anybody that today, Mr. Antonio Guterres, seeing that there is so much difficulties on the side of La République du Cameroun to subdue us, and that they are running dry on cash, decides to set aside a sum of 10 billion CFA to assist a government that is perpetrating, visiting genocide on unarmed people. Is that the role of the United Nations? Is that why the United Nations was created? My dear people, this brings us back to the simple assertion that I've always said, that we are on our own, that we have to appropriate to ourselves our destiny. We are not the first to pass through this kind of stage, to witness this kind of international conspiracy. Others have gone through this, they have been able to overcome. Eritrea witnessed the same kind of situation. They overcame. The people of East Timor witnessed this kind of situation. They were able to overcome. The people of Southern Sudan witnessed the same kind of vicissitudes. They ended up with their country. Even if they are in confusion, they will definitely come out of it. By the way, all the big countries of the world today, developed as they are, also went through moments of confusion. We know what happened in France. Take a read of the French Revolution. You will see the period of the reign of terror. You will see how people killed themselves and all of those things for the country to be what it is today. I am not encouraging the killing of ourselves. I'm simply pointing out that even when there has been confusion, like sometimes people try to make allusion to South Sudan in reference to what they say will be a failed Southern Cameroon state because they think that there are certain confusion among us. I want to tell you, all these big countries went through those stages to become what they are today. And so, while South Sudan is sorting out itself to also line up as a big country, no one should use that as an example or as an opportunity to discourage our people's legitimate search for self-determination, our people's legitimate thirst for self-determination, which is a right. My dear people, when you look at that package from the Secretariat of the United Nations, it says 10 billion CFA francs is allocated to the government of La République du Cameroun to enable them finance multiculturalism and bilingualism, to enable them finance disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, to enable them carry out measures that will lead to what is called living together, that would kind of promote cohesion. I want to laugh because this same United Nations is supposed to have endorsed a certain Swiss-led process meant to bring the two parties to the negotiation table. And after such negotiations, that's when you have been expecting a ceasefire from both ends. And when there is that ceasefire and both ends decide to drop their arms, that is when you get now to what is called disarmament, demobilization, and definitely reintegration. So when the United Nations Secretariat General decides to take this decision at this time to provide the funds when La République du Cameroun so badly needs funds to buy more weapons, to buy more, bullets, guns, landmines, and everything to kill our people, you should definitely understand the purpose of the money. And again, it doesn't set any strict standards to ensure that this money is not used in acquiring weapons. The statement specifically indicates that La République du Cameroun will determine how better to use the money. This is clear. They will determine how best to use the money. Now, when they make the blanket statement, well, areas involved are the northwest, southwest, they call it the English region, the far north with Boko Haram, and the east with, with refugee concerns. That is just a kind of cover. The real message is that Mr. Antonio Guterres, true to himself, true to the orientation he has taken, has decided to extend a hand of help to Mr. Paul Biya's government that is cash-strapped so that they can continue to acquire weapons to kill our people. This is a big call to all of us to understand that even those talks that you hear from Switzerland and all not about, negotiations, they really don't plan to lead to anything at all. That is why until today, the Swiss based non-governmental organization Center for Humanitarian Dialogue cannot show to anyone the mandate that they obtained from La République du Cameroun to play the role of mediator. They today are simply playing an obstructionist role. That is why they even have gone out of their way to be holding town hall meetings with the people of the Southern Cameroons here and there and deceiving our people to believe in the imminence of dialogue. When from all indications, we can see that La République du Cameroun is receiving all the assistance necessary to continue killing our people. Now, I'd like you to take a look at the economic woes of La République du Cameroun to understand why Mr. Guterres had to make this urgent move at this time. First, the Prime Minister of that country head of government has declared the Northwest, Southwest, and Far North economically disaster zones and is offering a tax incentive to any company, both local and international, that would like to invest in those areas to go for 3 years without paying any taxes. They will benefit of exoneration for 3 years. First, let me comment on that one quickly before I move on to the other aspects. This indicates to you that, the economy is in very bad shape, but also consider it a trap. This is a move La République is taking to open the doors of the Southern Cameroons to Chinese who have been involved in very crooked mining deals in the east of La République du Cameroon. This is an attempt to open our doors to them so they can come and mine diamond and other precious metals so they will sell on the black market to use that to continue to buy weapons to kill our people. Do not take this just as innocently as it appears. We have to be vigilant and very vigilant when dealing with a murderous government like that of La République du Cameroon. The next move, some 2 months back, La République du Cameroon had already blocked the transfer of funds out of the country. Still indications that they are facing serious economic problems. And now the most recent one, they have frozen financial withdrawals from banks, from any bank or credit union above the sum of 5 million CFA. Which means no matter how much you have in your account, you can no longer withdraw up to 5 million CFA in one go. That is a clear indication of the financial difficulties that they are facing and serious signs of trouble. Serious indications, my dear brothers and sisters of Ambazonia, that we are gradually getting to where we have to go to. My dear people, we have to remain strong. We have to remain resilient. We have to continue to sacrifice. This was never going to be easy. Seeking independence from a system that has penetrated our fabrics for more than 50 years, or close to 60 years, was definitely not going to be a walk in the park. Of course, the people of East Timor had witnessed that, and they can tell you about that. That Indonesia used the people of East Timor themselves, the elite of East Timor, to subdue the people. But the message I have for the so-called elites of the Southern Cameroons who are being used today to subdue us is that in the end, when Indonesia realized they could no longer keep East Timor, when East Timor successfully secured its independence, the people of Indonesia, the government of Indonesia, was no longer interested in the elite of East Timor that they used to grind their people. They expelled them forcefully. They wanted to seek refuge and stay in Indonesia. The government of Indonesia chased them away and forced them, did what they call, and refooled them back into East Timor to go and face the wrath of the same people they had destroyed over the years. Do not think that you ever have any protection from La République du Cameroon. They're using you, Mr. So-called, Mr. or Mrs. So-called elite, using you. At the end of the day, when you no longer be useful, they will do to you exactly what Indonesia did to the so-called elite from East Timor. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, this is a time for us to be strong. This is a time for us to stay resilient. This is a time for us to put our heads, hearts, and minds together to make sure we walk this journey of freedom all the way to the end. Now, I have this message for our people. I want all of us to note that our warfare is mainly spiritual. That is why La République du Cameroon, with all the assistance from a lot of countries around the world, has not been able to destroy us within 2 weeks as they expected. They have not been able to break the strong will of our people. They have inflicted all forms of pain, sufferings, and torture, but they have not been able to touch the resolve of the people. This is because the Spirit of God is with us, is in us. This is because the strongholds, the evil spiritual strongholds of La République du Cameroon in our land are progressively being cracked by prayer warriors across the board. I, personally, have never ever stood for war. I don't in any way support violent confrontation. But those who have already picked up arms to defend themselves as self-defense volunteers, all I can do is extend words of advice on how not to become more of a problem to our people than a solution. I'd like you to take note, dear Amber boys and Amber girls, that this warfare is spiritual than physical. If you have been able to make any impact, if you have been able to stay alive, it is because the Spirit of God is with you all. This is why I'm going to call on a good lot of you to understand that it will make even a lot of sense for you to create altars of God. Create altars to God in all your camps, wherever you are, and pray to the Lord our God for his guidance. Trust in him, not in Odeshi. Put your trust in him. Erect altars for the Lord. He will continue to give us grace and to protect us. Pray always to him and make sure by your acts you do not carry out any act that will anger him. Do not carry out any act that will anger the Lord. And such acts will involve things like kidnapping, will involve things like rape, will involve things like torture, will involve things like ransom asking. Be in total communion with the people. Work with the people. Pray to God. These people are also on their knees on a daily basis, praying to God for our survival, praying to God for our freedom, for us to secure the victory we deserve. And by this, going to urge our people, especially on Ground Zero, that our traditional Monday Country Sundays should henceforth even be transformed into days of fasting and prayer. Since you stay indoors, turn these days into days of serious fasting and prayer, and continue to call on the Holy Spirit of God to destroy the evil strongholds that the enemy is using to set confusion in our midst, to give the impression to the rest of the world that we are not a united folk, to give the impression to the rest of the world that we will be the next South Sudan, as they claim, to give the impression to the rest of the world that we are just a bunch of disorganized and disgruntled people wanting to bring disorder in the country of Mr. Paul Biya. A lot of prayer warriors around have recommended praying on such Mondays and fasting with Psalms 91, Psalm 23, 135. And if you pray Psalm 135, because it's quite long and you can't pray it all, lay emphasis on verses 1 to 10. This is the way we will make it. We have to stay strong and resilient. The fact that the United Nations has included La République du Cameroon in their Human Rights Council, and again are including them in their UN Peace Commission, should not be a point of discouragement. It should rather be a point of encouragement. My dear people, yes, we will get there. My dear people, yes, we will overcome. My dear people, yes, we have to remain strong and supportive to each other. I say and I insist, I still hear the bells of freedom ringing loud and strong in the horizons. We will get there.